5 months I've been part of the Malaria Griot project, and one of our assignments was to interview people randomly in the streets and find out what they think about malaria. And I got very interesting answers. Some of them were a mosquito bite causes it, a disease mostly experienced in Africa due to lack of proper drainage.
Malaria is just not good, or fever caused by a mosquito bite. And the fun ones were, people described, because when you have malaria, you get a really bad feeling. I don't know if any of you have gotten malaria before, but it's a really bad feeling and experience. So somebody just told me it's yellow vision, throbbing, headache, and vomit. Another one told me, mosquito bites you and then it, gets the balls rolling. But what really is malaria? It's a deadly disease. It's caused by a parasite transmitted from one person to the next by the anopheles mosquito. It's a female mosquito. I don't know why it has to be a female mosquito. But it is a female mosquito.
Only the female. We see the problem.
And it's not all of them. It's specifically the anopheles mosquito. And this one bites at night. But what happens is in Africa, you don't really know. You just, see mosquitoes and you assume, all of them transmit malaria, but it's this specific one and it's very deadly. And basically what happens is when you get a mosquito bite, for the next 9 to 10 days, you don't even know. You don't even know it. The parasite is in your body, it goes to your liver, it affects, it kills your cells and damages red blood cells. And, at that time, that's when you start getting flu-like symptoms. And most people will try to think, oh, I have a fever. You take some medication to treat fever. Sometimes you just think, you take cough medication because you think you have a cold, but it's not a cold, it's malaria. And that's the time that it damages your red blood cells and you can get anemia. If it progresses, you don't get treatment, which is the case in the village, or even if you travel and you come back and you don't even suspect that you have malaria. It can block the capillaries that supply blood to the brain, and that's when you get malaria. And at that time, people will think you're crazy because you hallucinate and say things that don't make sense, and still people don't know it's malaria. And when it gets to that stage, most people die. And that's why it's a very dangerous disease and needs to be treated. The people at risk are mostly children under 5 because your immune system is not that strong. Pregnant women have been dying a lot in Africa without even knowing it. If you're pregnant and you get malaria, you can die within hours of just contracting the disease. And then also persons with HIV because your immune system is low. And also international travelers, like most of you here, if you travel to Africa, it's advised that you take medication before you get there. There are medicines that you can take, and then when you come back, you should continue with medication because your immune system is not that strong. Also, if you haven't ever gotten malaria, your risk of contracting the disease is much higher because your immune system hasn't gotten used to it. For someone like me or someone who's been to Africa, the more you get malaria, your immune system kind of gets used to it. So when a mosquito bites you, you're able to fight the disease. And why this disease is very important and we need to talk about it is because it causes over 800,000 deaths per year, and people don't know it. And most of these deaths, 85% of them are in sub-Saharan Africa, where I am from. I'm from Kenya. And what's sad is that it kills a child every 40 seconds. So for the 5 minutes I've been talking here, so many children have died in Africa. Someone is dying right now as I speak. Yet, this is a disease that's preventable and it's curable. So what are we supposed to do? They've come up with ways that you can help. The best way is to prevent. Prevent by using a mosquito net and using it properly. They've come up with long-lasting insecticide-treated mosquito nets, which most organizations are distributing in Africa. I'm going to show you which organizations are doing this. And they last for 5 years, and then you can retreat them. You do treatment on the mosquito net so that it can last longer and it can be able to protect your child and pregnant women and children. And then also there is DDT spray, which is a chemical that's sprayed on walls and drainage system to make sure that mosquitoes are not breeding. And the best way, if you suspect that you have malaria, is to go get tested. Because if you take medication and you don't actually have malaria, what ends up happening is you get, your body resists, like you get used to the medication such that when you get the actual malaria and you take the medicine, it doesn't work. So they advise that first get tested. It takes only 5 minutes to get tested. And then there's also proper medication that are there, monotherapies, quinine, and medication like that. So how can you get involved? There are so many organizations here. There's USAID, which is your funded by the American government. There are many others, Global Fund, UNICEF, World Health Organization, Roll Back Malaria. These are all organizations you can Google. You can go find out what they're doing, what projects that they're doing, and get involved. And how really you can get involved. As you, the American people, most of you are American and most of you are here, you have the skills, you have the knowledge, and you have the resources. And the resources, I mean, it can be $10, you know, anything. It costs only $10 to send a mosquito net to a child and to save a life. So you can create awareness by, you know, Googling those organizations that I've talked about, see what programs they have, and you can have community events. Like this is supposed to be a community event. Just create awareness, and you know, people can help. You can make a donation if you want, or you can urge leaders to support legislation that targets global health, like the Presidential Malaria Initiative. It's very important. When you see American money being sent to Africa, it's really making a huge difference. Or you can volunteer. I've been a volunteer for malaria. I just want to be a spokesperson. And you can help to end malaria deaths in Africa. I'm a survivor of malaria. I almost died twice of malaria. And I wasn't taken to hospital because my grandmother thought she could diagnose and, you know, just give me medication until I got really worse. I got cerebral malaria, but I survived. So I would encourage all of you here today, do something about it. Google, go find out what you can do about malaria, and if you want to get more involved, you can ask me after the event. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.